We're starting in Chicago and traveling to St. Louis along Old Route 66, where we're really stepping back in time, complete with classic cars and a poodle skirt, and visiting Route 66 locations that operated for decades and have been well restored and still welcome the public today. Welcome to Travels with Darley.
We're traveling an iconic American highway, chock full of history and nostalgia, Route 66. Route 66 extends from Chicago to Santa Monica, and we're driving a vintage car, motorcycle, and even a flaming SUV on a portion of it from Chicago to St. Louis. We'll meet locals who have made it their mission to preserve the history of this fabled highway, called the Mother Road, which dates back to 1926. We'll meet the communities who live along this historic road trip route in Illinois today. I'm starting in Chicago, Illinois at the street sign marking the beginning of Route 66, right across from the Art Institute of Chicago, and seeing a few sights before heading down the road.
Here in Chicago at the start of historic Route 66, let's go. If you are starting your Route 66 adventure here in the great city of Chicago, which I definitely recommend, take a few days if you can to walk around on your own 2 feet. Chicago is such a great city to explore by walking.
History, public art, and lots of green spaces combine in downtown Chicago. I take a walk through Grant Park to Buckingham Fountain, which opened to the public just a year after Route 66 was launched as part of the nation's first federal highway system.
Buckingham Fountain is one of the largest fountains in the world, and it might remind you of being in Versailles because it was modeled after the fountains in Versailles.
Many families and groups drive Route 66 today, seeking to enjoy a vacation that combines travel and adventure with history, cuisine, and culture. Just about a half hour outside of Chicago, I'm making my first stop at a park that's family-friendly, the Route 66 Playground at Harvester Park in Burr Ridge.
The sound of kids having fun at a playground, you know it's a good playground. And this is a good stop if you're on Old Route 66, you've got your family, you have kids, and you want to stretch your legs for a bit coming out of Chicago. This playground combines fun with learning about stops along Old Route 66. You can even slide through various states on your adventures here.
You can indeed, but for adults, I don't recommend the slide.
Please note, this is recommended for ages 5 through 12. All right. I shot out of there like a cannon. I am now officially on Old Route 66, and I've made a stop here at White Fence Farm. They've been serving chicken here since 1954.
Not a lot of places are still around 69 years later that you grew up in. I'm the 3rd generation here at White Fence Farm. My grandparents started it.
Laura Hastert sits down with me to share the story of her family business.
So the chicken we get in whole, and then we dust it with a pastry flour, a secret pastry flour. We pressure cook it, and then when you order it, we flash fry it. It's known in the area as the healthiest fried chicken you could eat.
It's just tender on the inside, crunchy on the outside, a little bit salty and savory, but also so light.
There's no batter. It's just dusted with a real thin pastry flour. This is definitely a landmark in the area. I mean, we get thousands of people through here in a week that come and say, our grandparents passed on, but we still come here for Grandma's birthday every year because we did since we were young. It gives me goosebumps because they do. Their whole families come here.
So a special place.
A special place. Like I said, a landmark in the area.
Further down the road, I'm making a stop in Joliet, Illinois. Located just 35 miles from Chicago, Joliet is home to the Chicagoland Speedway, the historic Rialto Theater, and much history and fodder related to Route 66. Unless you think that Route 66 is all about nostalgic places, the Mother Road has diverse historic sites open to travelers, and one of the most unique is the Old Joliet Prison.
I'm going to prison today. I'm at the Old Joliet Prison. It operated from 1858 until 2002. You might know it from the movie The Blues Brothers. They filmed here, or the show Prison Break. Lots of movies and TV shows have actually filmed at this site. And it's just one of these places in America that time stood still when it closed. They're working on restoring this historic property, and it's definitely giving me a few chills.
If walking by long abandoned payphones and signs reading things like "Make time serve you," doesn't haunt you enough. Step inside the building known as North Seg, which housed solitary confinement and death row.
Inside this building today, you can still see the cells where the inmates were held. When you walk in, it says it's never too late to mend. But in a weird way, you think it might be too late because upstairs was death row.
Greg Peerbolte, the CEO of the Joliet Area Historical Museum and Old Joliet Prison Historic Site, takes a walk with me in the shadow of the East Cell House.
It feels massive to me.
Yeah, so it was massive when it was built, even by today's standards. We have 16 acres inside the walls here. It was built to be the only prison that the state of Illinois would ever need in 1858. The story of the Joliet Prison is a story of wanting to do better, a story of reform. In the early days, there was little thought to how can we help address root causes of why you're here. And then as time went on, a lot of that started right here at the Joliet Prison.
I could be doing a self-guided tour right now.
Self-guided tours are very popular. The solitude, I think, is something that helps impact the visitor.
One of the world's best abandoned places right here in Joliet.
That's us.
If you're busting out of prison, why not do so in style?
Beautiful car.
Thank you, thank you.
Ronald Blaskovich is picking me up in his red 1967 Oldsmobile Cutlass 442. He's meeting his other classic car owner friends at the Polk-a-Dot Drive In and has offered to let me join.
Several good places within 30 miles that have good lunches. We get a bunch of cars together and we go.
Ron, this is the right way to ride Route 66, I think, in this car.
It's been on Route 66 quite a few times.
We pass by Gemini Giant in Wilmington. These 1960s Muffler Man statues were once alongside attractions along Route 66 and played up the theme of space exploration research, popular in the era. We make our way to the Polk-a-Dot Drive In to meet Ron's friends.
Here we go. So you all get together and you have car shows, you eat meals, you cruise around. Yeah. Sounds cool to me.
We got a 67 Golf Mustang Racer, 1966 Chevy Impala, and an AMX car, among others.
They're not making these anymore. Thanks, Ron, for this Route 66 adventure.
Treat. So from here, you're going to Pontiac?
We're heading down Route 66.
A lot of neat little towns on the way.
I'm excited.
I'm keeping on my poodle skirt and adding a letter jacket for our next stop along Old Route 66, just a 20-minute drive away.
We have stepped back in time once again on Old Route 66. We're at the Ambler Becker service station. This operated longer than any other service station on Route 66 for 66 years, actually, starting in the 1930s. Travelers would stop by here. They needed their tire changed. They needed their car service. They just needed some gas. It was kind of a wayfare point on Old Route 66, and it's still standing today, which is pretty remarkable. It's been really well restored, listed on the National Register of Historic Places, and a great place for your photo ops. This is wild. These are all people that have visited the station just this summer and have come in and put pins in here. Angola. I love this. Cool.
People travel along this classic road from all over the world. And to juxtapose a historic gas station with a modern one, complete with electronic vehicle charging stations, I'm stopping at Wally's.
I just got a little lost inside Wally's, and you can find a little bit of everything inside. People come here not only to fill up their gas, but also to get the popcorn, to get the jerky, to get the barbecue. And if you're hungry, they have a kind of every type of food thing you would want as your road trip snack or a meal. So a fun place to lose yourself for a little bit of time halfway between Chicago and St. Louis, right here along Old Route 66.
Yes, we've already made it halfway into our journey, but there's much more to see and learn. So I hightail it down the road from Wally's on the outskirts of Pontiac to downtown Pontiac.
We have landed in Pontiac, a popular stop for car and motorcycle club enthusiasts. And if you love public art, it's also a great city to visit. There are more than 20 murals throughout the city depicting the history of Route 66.
One of the key artists immortalized in these murals is Bob Waldmeyer. And he's just one of the many people and places you can learn about when you visit with Rose Geralds, a volunteer docent at the Route 66 Hall of Fame Museum.
Familiar with.
So you grew up here in Pontiac?
I have grown up here
And been here for how long at the museum?
15 years. It's the best job I've ever had.
Why do you think people travel Route 66 today?
The memories, just to see what is still there.
So it's the then and the now. It's the changes along the
Yeah.
the road.
Yeah.
The mother road.
Yep, that's what it is.
In Normal, Illinois, we meet Terry Ryburn, who is dedicated to celebrating and preserving Route 66 history. She championed the cause to restore Sprague's Super Service Station, whose original owner was way ahead of the times.
It was built in 1930 by a local contractor named William W. Sprague. What he wanted was a two-story Tudor Revival-style gas station, and he built that. That was very unusual in 1930 to have an attached cafe with your garage and your gas station. So he figured out what people needed, and he supplied it.
How long have you had Sprague's Super Service?
I bought this in 2006 when it was just about ready for the wrecking ball. Frankly, only a crazy person would have bought it in that condition, but I couldn't let it go down. I knew it could come back, so it's preserved, and all I ever really wanted was to preserve this building.
Well, it looks beautiful, and congratulations for getting it listed on the National Register, because that's not a small feat.
We do it for the love. We sure don't do it for the money.
Yeah, well, that's what we're all doing.
In Springfield, we find another family-run business that took a traditional American food item and gave it a twist.
This is one of the stops I was most looking forward to on Route 66 because I do love hot dogs, and I haven't had a corn dog since I was a child. And these are not corn dogs, they're cozy dogs.
Josh Wildmeyer, a relative of Route 66 artist Bob Wildmeyer, who we learned about in Pontiac, carries on this family business.
What makes a cozy dog distinctive?
A lot of people say that corn dogs are kind of bland. Ours have a little, I wouldn't say a spicy kick, but they have noticeable flavors that jump out to them. We do have our own recipe with our own blend of spices, which aren't like anything else out there. And they're also handmade. They're not frozen, they're not processed. We hand dip them, we hand stick the dogs, and they're made when you come in to order.
This is much more savory than a traditional corn dog, which I find to be sometimes sweet. I can taste like the crunch of the outside mixed with a little cumin, a little chili pepper. And the dog is good. Let's go cozy dog.
Abraham Lincoln spent over 20 years in Springfield, Illinois, and today you can visit a national park site that has preserved the home where he and Mary Todd Lincoln raised their family.
Everyone knows Abraham Lincoln, 16th president, great emancipator, guy with a really tall top hat. But here we focus on actually a little bit of his life before, him as a father, as a husband, as a neighbor, and a friend.
And we're walking through the neighborhood where he and his wife lived for quite some time.
Yes, it was a mixed middle class kind of area for that. Like a single mother who lived here, free African Americans, immigrants, a lot of Irish, Germans, some Portuguese. For that time period, it would have been considered pretty diverse.
Ranger Jasmine Lung takes me to see the home where he lived prior to going to Washington.
This is what we call the parlor room. This is where Lincoln actually is offered the formal nomination to run for president of the United States by the Republican Committee. So you could in a way say that this is where Abraham Lincoln started his presidential journey. This room is what we call the sitting room, casual space where the family can relax, spend time together. Over there on the table, that's called a stereoscope. It's a 3D picture viewer. It is an original Lincoln artifact, pretty cool, very expensive, high tech for that time period. An example of how far Lincoln has come from those log cabin beginnings, and also how much, he loved his children, kind of like, his version of buying them an expensive new shiny toy. We get people coming here because they're into national parks. We have people coming here because they're into Abraham Lincoln. And we have people who are coming on Route 66 and are like, oh, what's that? And, they just stop by and then they get to see something new that they weren't expecting.
If you're looking for bright lights at night along Route 66, I've got one that's family friendly.
I do love a good neon sign, and if you love to learn about the past and the present and what's on Route 66 today, what was there in yesteryear, this is the Route 66 experience at the Illinois State Fairgrounds, and it literally walks you through from Chicago all the way to the end in Illinois.
Another spot where you can combine Route 66 memorabilia with local beer, sports, and very large pretzels is with Ron Metzger at Motorheads in Springfield.
Ron, I'm looking around and I'm wondering, Where did you get all this stuff?
It's really started small, and next thing you know, you get carried away. I got the original sign from Abe Lincoln Motel we took down in 1996, and I've saved it since 1996. So I got it hanging out there. So honestly, it's my prized possession.
And you have outside, it's the largest Route 66 shield.
But yeah, 6.5 stories tall.
You are known for motorsports.
Every family has a motorhead in it. Uncle, grandpa, brother, sister, somebody in that family to motorhead.
Well, cheers to being a motorhead here in Springfield.
You got to be a motorhead if you're in Springfield.
I hear the rumble of Harleys and head outside to see what's happening.
Ron, it's Friday night. The bikes are pouring in because it's
bike night.
Okay.
It's bike night at Motorhead.
And people are coming to eat, they're coming to socialize, they're showing off their bikes, right? Well, you have really fostered a community here on Route 66. Since people explore Route 66 in different ways, I am too. I had a classic car. Now I've got Ron's car.
I love it.
This is quite a vehicle.
This is our Hummer. It's yours for
Well, I will be on a motorcycle later in the trip. For a change of driving pace, Ron is letting me borrow his SUV to head to Auburn Brick Road.
We are now driving on a section of the old brick road. This was hand-laid, dates back to 1931, and it's listed on the National Register. It's just really beautiful as you ride further south down from Chicago on old Route 66. You go through all this rural area, these farmlands, small towns, small cities, great places to meet people who really want to share about Route 66 and its history.
I'm continuing on to a classic soda fountain. Casey Claypool helped save docks just off 66, which back in 1884 was Deck's drugstore.
We really kind of took all of the pharmacy stuff that we had here, put it on display, made it a destination where people can come and see things that you can no longer see.
Well, it's hard to decide what to get here, but that flight of ice cream might be calling my name.
This is what people come in for. So we have gooey butter cake, Oreo cheesecake, blackberry cobbler, cherry chocolate chunk, apple pie, and strawberry cheesecake. Right? Very fresh, high quality, real blackberries.
I was gonna say it tastes like it's farm fresh.
Yes, it is.
By keeping this open and restoring it, I feel like you're almost doing a public service.
When we bought the place, our hope was to help revive a business that had, been struggling and a town that had been struggling. We have plans to expand the downtown here and do more, so we look forward to those days.
Still curing people in here.
Still curing people after 150 some years.
Just 30 minutes south of docks in Litchfield, William Law took over Ariston Cafe and kept the same menu and nostalgic vibe at this landmark restaurant dating back to 1924.
Will, this is the oldest operating restaurant here along Route 66?
Yes.
On the whole Route 66?
The whole route from Chicago to Santa Monica, California. We entertain just thousands of Europeans who love the white tablecloth, the Americana vibe. Prime rib is probably our #1 thing. We slow cook the prime rib, so it takes about 7-8 hours overnight.
Wow. It's super tender. It melts.
There you go.
20 minutes down the road, the Pink Elephant is an antique mall where you can spend your time wandering through some very creative collections and meet passionate collectors.
This is a cool.
It's just called a morphed bangle. Most of my jewelry is 30s through maybe the early 80s. I think I have a pretty good collection here.
You have a good collection, I know.
Yeah.
You wouldn't find this in a big box store.
No, you wouldn't.
So many things in here are like Route 66. They're things that you can't find everywhere that are historic, they're retro. It's fun to see these things that you don't find in everyday stores.
That's right.
Outside, make sure to seek out the ice cream.
Oh, yes. The crunch of the walnuts, the sweetness of the caramel and the hot fudge. Delicious and delightful.
So many stops along Illinois' Route 66 are in close proximity, making driving and stopping along the way easy and fun. In Collinsville, Illinois, I find a roadside attraction and the family who helped save it. Mike Gassman takes an evening stroll to explain.
So how big is the world's largest ketchup bottle?
The world's largest ketchup bottle is 170 feet tall. That's a 70-foot bottle on top of 100-foot legs.
There's some long legs.
They are long legs, and they're the best-looking legs in town as far as I'm concerned.
How did you decide to save this roadside attraction?
Well, in the 90s, there was talk of having it torn down. We formed a committee, raised a whole bunch of money, and saved it and restored it to its beautiful 1949 glory.
You are Mr. Ketchup here in Collinsville.
I am Mr. Ketchup here in Collinsville, but most people call me the Big Tomato, and I love it. Thanks for stopping by, and we'll catch up with you later.
Oh, no.
Mike is truly bringing out the cheese, or rather ketchup, and that merits a stop for a drink. Derek Reiser invites me into Old Herald Brewery and Distillery to learn about Collinsville.
Collinsville is home to the world's largest ketchup bottle and also is the hub for horseradish.
Horseradish capital of the world. Well, we grow about 60% of the world's supply of horseradish right here. The conditions are perfect in the Mississippi River bottoms. Got the right soil conditions. Families have been growing it for generations here.
Well, I actually really like horseradish, and I would have never even thought to try a horseradish spirit. So this is kind of exciting.
Well, I had to make something that was based off of what we're known for. So I thought, well, a horseradish vodka would be good in a Bloody Mary. The vapors come up with the aromas and some of the flavors, but not that punch in the sinuses. So it's not quite so scary to drink. It's very smooth.
I could smell it before I could taste it.
It's very aromatic.
It's savory. It's a savory spirit.
Very savory. It's surprising, a lot like a dirty martini.
Very fitting that we're having it here in the horseradish capital, right here along Route 66.
Cheers.
Cheers.
I'm getting close to St. Louis. In fact, we're not far from the border of Missouri for our next locations. Vernon Carver meets me at the West End service station in Edwardsville. This service station operated for nearly 4 decades and even had a guard dog mascot. Vernon is taking me through the nearby neighborhood with his motorcycle and sidecar, so I can take on the end of my Route 66 journey in style.
The downtown area has been around since 1818, so most of the houses along St. Louis Street are part of that original construction, and a lot of houses in the Midwest. One house would be built, the next house would almost have to outdo the one before it. So as you go down, you see some of the houses getting bigger and more fancy.
We cruise onwards to an even older historic location at Cahokia Mound State Historic Site.
Whew. This is a UNESCO World Heritage Site. It was the largest prehistoric Indian community north of Mexico, and these mounds are huge. I'm gonna climb a lot of stairs and check out the view from the top. Kind of remarkable to think about the dirt that was hand carried to the site in baskets. This mound is covering 14 acres, rising around 100 feet high, 22 million cubic feet of earth in this mound. This is pretty amazing. You can see all the way to St. Louis, including the St. Louis Arch.
It's a view that tells me I'm close to the end of this journey. On the last leg of my Route 66 adventure, I'm walking over one of the more interesting bridges in America.
This is a really cool bridge. It reminds me of a bridge that would be used in movie scenes. And it's just so interesting to think that from 1936 to 65, this was old Route 66. This was Route 66, and motorists would be passing over here. And it's a beautiful place to explore that history on old Route 66.
I've definitely gotten my kicks on this road trip adventure and truly met passionate locals fostering community and preservation through their commitment to history and to the Mother Road.
Oh my God. It's not meant for heavy children. I'm Darley Newman, and I appreciate you joining me. Bob, Bob, Bob.
Bob, Bob, Bob.
Traveling the road in a vintage car. modern car via motorcycle and more. It's a cozy dog, an all-American cozy dog here in Springfield, Illinois on Route 66.